everybody. Welcome to our webinar where we will be discussing recruitment and immigration as separate topics that that has to be combined here. So we will be starting at 6 o'clock or probably about a minute past 6, just to give some more people time. And we will see you later. Hi all, I'm just going to put my camera on. Welcome. There is a questions and answers tab that you can pop your questions through. We will try our best to get to as many as we can as we go along. But we are structuring this webinar to address the misconceptions around recruitment and immigration. This webinar is not legal advice, and I will remind everyone later. But if you would like a specific consultation based to your personalized preferences, your needs, your occupation, your country of choice, you are welcome to reach out. We will share those details as we go along. But sit tight, it's going to be fun. Sam, George, Feroz, and myself will be discussing these topics with our expertise and also the stories we've overcome in our experience. So I'm quite excited. Here we've got Feroz and we've got Sam also, and George will be joining us shortly. And yeah, please don't forget, we've got a Q&A section. I will pop through a question just so it can pop up. And if you have any other questions, you're welcome to put it through. So let's maybe start with the one question that most people are not sure about. Who is ultimately responsible for the success of a candidate's international move, the recruiter or the immigration agent? And this is something that we want you guys to answer. We will go through it as we go along, but just to get you involved in this process. Okay. There is a chat function. You can pop your questions through, and there's also a Q&A section. Okay, awesome. Well, let's get started. So we've got George with us, George Marks. We've got Sam LaRue, and we've got Feroz Hatiz. We all work together really well. You'll see the synergy as we go through this webinar. My name is Amy Peacock. I am the owner of Greener Pastures. I work as what's called an immigration project manager. So you want to immigrate, you're in a specific industry. I pull together the right immigration agents, the right recruitment teams, and the right relocations relevant to the country. So we make sure that your application is successful from start to finish. George Marks is our registered agent for New Zealand and for Australia. So we're very lucky to have him with us tonight. Thank you, George. And then we've got Feroz and Sam, who work with Sam LaRue Consulting. They work with us from a recruitment perspective. They have a lot of experience and an incredible network. So we're also super, super excited. Welcome, guys. Okay, so the question I popped in the chat is, who is ultimately responsible for the success of a candidate's international move, the recruiter or the immigration agent? So we're not going to answer that question right now. We'll do it at the end of the webinar. But please pop your questions through in the chat box and the Q&A section. As we go along, I just want to clarify that this is not legal advice. We do recommend that you reach out for a consultation so that we can give you a personalized outcome for your journey. Okay, so let's get into it. So the problem that we face all the time, George was just explaining one that he had heard of today. But the one that I always come across is clients come to me with a job offer that they've received from Australia, Australia being our biggest culprit. The job offer is amazing. Well done if you have gotten one. But the problem is, depending on your occupation type, Australia is very strict about what's called a skills assessment. Now, skills assessment have different timelines to process, but if you're not prepared, it can make the employer scared of you because of the cost implication and the timeline they have to wait to hire you, as well as you can lose the job from not being prepared. If you're in a trades role, you need a skills assessment, which has a 3-phase. So depending on if you are licensed or unlicensed, and that can take up to 6 months to complete. So you don't want to miss out on that opportunity because you're not prepared from day one. George, I'm not sure if you want to join in on your little experience you had today, just to give people an understanding of the problem.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, it was in actual fact just when the rest of the team joined the meeting. I was just sharing that somebody had sent me a message to say the generator technician, can we find them a job? And I said, well, yeah, what documents do you have? And he sent me about 5 documents. So in essence, he's got 5% of the documents he needs. So this is the pitfall. People think if they have a passport or a CV or a service letter, that makes them sufficiently document ready, when there's so much more that goes into it.
Absolutely. And when you're looking at the phrase there, I just need a job overseas and then I can move. Do you think that's true, George?
No.
No.
No. That's building the roof before you've built the foundations.
Absolutely.
You need to look at the core foundation and then move yourself up from there. And, the job offer is literally the thing that happens just before the visa application. So it's almost lost.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then for us, maybe if we can get you in here, what is one thing recruiters wish candidates understood about the hiring process internationally?
Well, it's not an easy process. It's not the quickest process, but I would say it's the best process. So locally, I would say it's not the greatest, but once you look at going abroad, that's where the world is completely open to you, especially for those with kids. You'd rather move abroad now as opposed to waiting till later and then they're short of opportunities. So I wish more people knew that, as it would create a lot more opportunities for them.
Absolutely. And it's the hard truth. People come across immigration and they go, I don't want to move my kids yet. I want them to finish school first. Okay, you can get them to finish school, but you also need to understand that when they are over 18, they are considered adults in most countries. And I mean, George, you've got from the New Zealand and Australian side, how difficult is it actually how expensive it is to send a child over on a study permit?
Again, this is something that I just encountered again today. Got phoned at about noon. Somebody randomly phoned me, never spoken to them before. They've got a job offer, looking to go over to New Zealand, and the son is now 20. What now? I said, well, got some options. You leave him here until you're eligible for residency and he joins you, or he goes and studies there. Now, this again plays into something that we'll probably chat about later, which is, I heard from somebody online that my son can get a 2-year visitor visa. Well, I've never heard of such a thing. and I've been in the industry I've been in the industry for 12 years and licensed since 2019. This is all news to me, which is obviously not accurate. So, to study overseas is 4 times more expensive because you're paying international fee-paying students rates. So rather try and do it earlier than later. Consult immediately, even if it's in its infancy. Get the right information, and then you might have some time, but don't wait till later. You are going to come a cropper, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And that, brings us back to, the topic of recruitment versus immigration. So there's certain things you need to ask yourself. Are you ready? How are you getting noticed? And how are you actually going to move? So a hard truth about immigration that most people don't want to hear is you have to qualify for a visa before you can actually go through any of the processes. But it's difficult to qualify for a visa because every country occupation has different requirements. So let's move on to the next slide. This is, again, like George mentioned, the social media misinformation. So recruitment and immigration are 2 completely different industries, but people think they are the same. Many people come to me and go, get me a job. I go, but I don't know anything about you. I need to know what visa pathway. We need to know your age, your qualifications, your work experience, your family makeup. It's not just as simple as getting a job. And this also falls down to, like George said, social media misinformation, that not everybody's situation is the same. This is why we recommend, let's have a consultation. Let's apply the rules of immigration and recruitment to your specific situation. Recruitment agencies do oversell jobs. I'm not sure, either Sam or Faraz, if one of you want to bring in a little bit about, why do recruitment agencies oversell jobs? What is their angle in this, and how are they contributing to this problem?
Well, when it comes to most agencies, it's more focus on getting in a lot of clients. So the focus is on the money. So that's why you find a lot of these big agencies are massive. They have large staff counts and they have massive offices. So the focus on them is generating money. So they tend to exaggerate some of the job ads. They tend to exaggerate what's required. But for example, with us, we keep things small, we keep it as cheap as possible, and we make it a lot more reasonable and realistic. And the focus is on the actual job search and finding the opportunity, as opposed to having 10,000 clients on our books and no results. So the more time we have to focus on clients coming in, the better quality work they will have. And we don't focus, well, in our company, on immigration aspects because that's your and George's specialties. So we have more time to focus on what's required to get them over there. Our attention is not split in any way.
Absolutely. And I mean, here, we've got the Canadian flag. So we have a immigration agent for Canada. We've got the Australian government. So George is registered as a MARA agent, and then also as a licensed immigration agent for New Zealand. So those are the 3 countries that actually offer a different perspective. We've got Europe, for example, where most of the employers have to do the visa. They have to do that part of the process. And this is where, the immigration rules are complex, and it's important for you to get an assessment, understand your pathway. Every country has different requirements. I mean, George, like for the skilled migrant category for New Zealand, can you maybe give us a quick little rundown on the points process?
Yeah. So skilled migrant category, it's points based. You need 6 points in total to qualify for residency. You get points for things like qualifications. You get points for how many years of work experience you have in New Zealand. So if, for example, we have somebody with a bachelor's degree, that'll score you 3 points. They then have to work in New Zealand for an additional 3 years, and in their industry, of course. And then they'll be eligible for the 6 points, which will give them residency. Well, it's not something that's automatic to them. It's still something that's applied for. But that's basically how the system works. And the higher your qualification, the more points you have there. So the lower amount of experience you need physically in New Zealand. So we don't come across very many applicants, though, with above a bachelor's with honours. But if you had somebody, for instance, with a master's, that would give you 5 points. And then one year of work experience in New Zealand would put you over that line. So it's just all about from your trade certificate upwards and how many years of experience you have to go sideways.
Thank you, George. And quick question for you. I hope the answer is what I'm thinking. How can a candidate avoid wasting money on the wrong process at the wrong time?
Do a consultation.
Yay!
Find out from scratch what you need.
Exactly.
It's the cheapest. It's the cheapest solution you're ever going to have in your entire life. Amy will tell you. Some people have done skills assessments for things that cost a fortune, 20,000, 30,000 Rand. And then when it actually comes down to it and they're working with us, well, that one was wrong. And you're going to start all over again. Or a case I'm used to, yeah, candidate's got his, say, for instance, a vet assess. Wonderful, cost him a fortune. And he's 43 for Australia. So it's kind of like becoming a problem there. So rather chat to us first before you go spend any money on anything else. Spend tiny amounts of money, get a consultation, get an immigration report, get the right information, and then go forth and do as many of the processes as you think you can on your own if you want to, or you leave it to all of us and we just do it for you.
Absolutely. Yep, 100%. And that is the answer. So we do have on our website, gpvisas.com, you can make an inquiry. You also, I have emailed pretty much everyone who's registered for this webinar. So please feel free to reach out and we can book that consultation. George, before we move on to the next slide quickly, I do want to ask this question. Liet, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, asked, what would be the ideal age for kids to move and when is it too late?
Matric and standard 9 are different, and I'm too old to work in grade, sorry, but I'm sure parents will know what standard 9 and matric is. Standard 9 and matric are tricky years. Hey, you don't want to take your kids out of school then. You want to do it ideally when they're young. Kids are flexible. You know, kids bounce back. When they're younger, it's the best. I mean, you know, having gone to the family holiday, it's within an hour of being in a foreign place on the beach. Kids have friends already. So the younger they are when you do this, I would say, obviously, the better. It also makes you younger, which puts you in a better position too. So the time is really now. In actual fact, it was a year or two ago, but the time's now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, not never, please.
Now.
Now. Awesome. Okay, well, let's move on. So this slide, we are talking about kind of the misconceptions about recruitment. And I'm going to hand over to Faraz and Sam to just go through their side of the process. Now, before I do that, recruitment is it's a funny topic because people reach out to us and go, here's my CV, find me a job. But recruiters don't work in that way. They work for the employer. They find the employer, they get a placement fee from the employer. They do not work for you at any point. And this is where we differ as a company because they work on behalf of the business and a recruiter will reach out to you. It's not likely that you reach out to a recruiter and they just have something for you suddenly. There's set requirements, they focus on certain skills. So Faraz and Sam, how does your recruitment strategy differ and overcome this issue?
So as you did mention, Amy, just to add on there, most agencies focus on what the company is looking for and what the company wants. So in doing that, they will prioritize locals or individuals with the necessary work rights that are returning to that specific country. So you will get sidelined until they decide that your skills are valued or that they value your skills at the moment. Whereas with us, We value your skills from the get-go, and we prioritize you from day one. So every opportunity that we come across, you are the priority. We are focused on finding you that opportunity. And we've had quite a number of locals across various countries that have come to us looking for opportunities. And for example, in New Zealand, Feroz, I need an opportunity in Auckland. I have the work rights. Can you help me? Sure, Ken, but that's not what we do. I would then advise them, find a local agency, they will prioritize you. We prioritize our clients that are offshore and looking for opportunities because that is our specialty. So it's not just the locals. And like you said, local agencies focus on the money from the employers.
Absolutely.
So
So,
let's look at it
yes,
this
sorry,
way.
Sam.
Let's look at it this way. Say, for example, you're in South Africa and you are a chemical engineer. Obviously, you'd reach out to all the chemical engineer recruitment firms and they would place you there. When it comes to international job hunting, Faraz and I have been in recruitment for a very, very long time, and we've taken what we know agency recruiters do and turned that to your advantage. In the sense that, as former recruiter agents ourselves, we know that a client will give us a wish list. They will say, find me someone that works within 50 kilometers of my business. They must have a certain qualification, they must have a certain personality requirement, and the list goes on. Then, as agency recruiters, you would basically go on a headhunting spree trying to match what they've given you exactly. So, there is a big misconception about recruiters in the industry because people assume that people that work in recruitment are there to purely find you a job. They're not. They're appointed by the company to fulfill a specific wish list of tributes that they want from a candidate. So what we've done is we've taken our extensive combined experience in recruitment and reverse engineered it so that we can get your CV noticed first. In other words, we know what agencies look for. We know what their ideal wish list is. And what's more is if you have a look at Australia and New Zealand specifically, they are highly dependent on international workforce. Now, if you look at, for example, where New Zealand is, and you look at the countries surrounding New Zealand, you'll notice that next to New Zealand, you've got Australia. But everybody from New Zealand and Australia are too busy jumping into each other's countries to fulfill those work requests. Then, of course, if you look at the next countries closest to New Zealand and Australia, you've got the Philippines, you've got Malaysia, you've got Vietnam, China, Japan. Excellent, excellent labor force. But people, do you know what the biggest problem there is?
Language.
They don't speak any English. So that creates a headache on the recruiter side. They cannot very well post job ads to attract international talent by saying, we would like these skills except from these countries. That would be highly illegal. So instead, these countries like New Zealand and Australia, who are heavily reliant on a foreign workforce, they work through immigration advisors and they work with their recruitment partners. I mean, last year we had a New Zealand firm fly out its recruiters to come and meet our electricians in this country in person. So that just goes to show you how careful they need to be and how much they prefer to work with immigration firms and their recruiters because they can't very well bypass the whole we are hiring except from your country and your country. And of course, they love South Africans and they love people from the African continent because we all speak English as our first language. And that's where the benefit comes in to you when you are looking for a job, to be working with your immigration advisor as well as your project management firm, as well as our networks, so that we can give you the advantage of being seen first by international companies that are looking for offshore hires.
Absolutely. And just a little success story to that I'm super proud of. Sam and Faraz, we had a client that we brought on board, actually our first client at Greener Pastures, started with us in December 2024. In March 2025, he got headhunted by an employer in the Netherlands and moved over soon after. And that created a whole whirlwind of a network, but it created a better opportunity, a greener pasture for them. And that was from the skill set and the knowledge that Sam and Faraz applied to this candidate's LinkedIn profile, CV, the exposure that they did. So we take a look at your occupation and we align you with the correct people. Now, just to give my role a bit of a, to add my role in here as an immigration project manager, is if you're in construction, I'm going to align you with construction recruiters and construction network. If you're in the medical industry, we're going to work together to align you with the medical industry. So it's not one size fits all ever. And maybe just to introduce the next slide, I'm going to ask George this question. What misconceptions do candidates have about getting the job versus securing a visa?
So clients think that the job comes first and then the visa comes later. And yeah, it does to an extent. Problem is that under normal circumstances, it takes me 4-5 months to get that candidate fully immigration ready. In other words, fully document ready. Now, and then they go and look for work through the rest of the team, which is perfect. They document ready. Come to us first with a job offer, you got a problem. In my experience, I mean, I've been in the industry for 12 years, you will lose that job offer. Because if the employer has to wait for you for 5 months to get document ready and then another 2 weeks for me to get the work visa for you, he's gone. He's going to find somebody that could have been there in 3 weeks, which had you have followed the process that we offer, you would have been.
Yeah, absolutely. And that example comes up with my previous scenario where a client came to me with a job offer in Australia, but they didn't have a skills assessment. And they weren't properly prepared for that. So yes, the job offer can come first, but the employer is not likely to speak to you unless they know how serious you are and that you've actually gone to an immigration agent and you've got your paperwork in order. And that's where we started our certificate of commitment for our clients who've finished stage 1. They're committed to this process. We added in the recruitment element, and it makes you stand out better.
Yeah, what I found is that a lot of employers at the moment even ask for a letter from us saying, yeah, the client's document ready. His letter's client's document ready, ready to go. You give him a job offer, I can lodge. It's coming up more and more and more and more.
Absolutely. And George, with that, I mean, we've also got to consider the timeline.
Yeah.
You know, the visa sponsorships, the job tokens, they don't last forever. They have a set timeline.
Yeah, they got to be used. And in New Zealand, employers want to use them. They're desperate to use them. You mentioned earlier, you know, or Sam mentioned earlier that they need foreigners. They've only got a 4.7 million population. That's it. But their GDP is such that they don't have sufficient people. So there's heaps and heaps and heaps of people going into New Zealand. But the thing is, they've done it the right way. Be one of them. Work with us. Be one of them.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's so New Zealand, there's always people talk about recession and they talk about people moving from New Zealand to Australia. People are allowed to move and they can move at any point, and you have that opportunity when you're in a first world country, but you don't have the opportunity to move to Australia if you're still stuck in South Africa. So you've got to have that start somewhere. But also from a European perspective, if you're looking at Europe, you're up against the entire European Union. So if you are a South African and you have an Afrikaans background, your best country is the Netherlands. to be honest, unless you go to a predominantly English-speaking country. But then again, you are up against the entire European Union that can move freely with working rights. So you need better representation, better exposure. And that's where I fully trust Sam and Faraz are brilliant at this. And you get regular updates and we get changes, but we also adjust the strategy as we go through the process to expose you better. Okay. George, where do you typically see breakdowns or mistakes in your immigration side of the process? Sorry, you're on mute again.
Yeah. Having done this for so long and having worked for other companies, and this is pre-licensing, I've watched very carefully what other advisors had done. And I watched because I had to help clean up the mistakes. Communication is the problem. Now, when you've done this for long enough and you want hassles as little as I do, you put certain measures in place from the get-go, and these are standard operating procedures that you do not fluctuate from them. My process basically ensures that the candidate clients at that stage and are speaking in the beginning at least 3 or 4 times a week. As they further along in the process, that does start to slow down, which is normal. But communication back and forth, being able to pick up your phone and just phone me or WhatsApp me and get an answer within a couple of minutes, that's the difference.
Absolutely. And that is something we will touch on in a second. Let me move on to, just as a summary of that, the difference between recruitment and immigration. Recruitment will focus on jobs. It is employer focused. So the employer will tell the recruiter, go find these people, not the other way around. Whereas in immigration, we focus, George and all the immigration advisors will focus on the visa. Then with recruitment, you do have short-term contracts, but with immigration, George always outlines so nicely the long-term pathway. You know, how are you going to get residency? How are you going to get a passport? How can you make this a stable move for your whole family? And you cannot get that advice from a recruiter. It has to be from an immigration specialist. So we're super fortunate to have this team together. If you have any questions, please pop it in the Q&A section or the chat section. We highly recommend setting up a consultation, but combined, recruitment helps you find a job. Immigration helps you legally actually move to the country. It has to go hand in hand, but you do need to understand the difference. So there's the email inquiry@gpvisas.com. If you are serious about your future, we do charge for a consultation fee. It's 350 Rand, but it's totally worth it compared to everything else that you could be paying if you're going the wrong route. Okay, so moving on from our recruitment and immigration, there are 3 real pathways. Actually, let's maybe just go back and look at a few questions. I see some very good ones popping up to attack George and Sam and Faraz a little bit. So here's a question, George, maybe this would be for you. I often see the following when applying for an international role. Will you now or in the future require sponsorship for employment visa status? How does answering yes impact your chances, as companies will automatically filter you out? And what can candidates do to stay competitive despite that? George or Faraz?
Like from my side, the huge thing here, and it's the biggest misconception, it's the biggest thorn in anybody in all of our industry's side, is what exactly is sponsored? Sponsored is for Australia. It's an employer-sponsored visa. That only means that the employer is giving you a job. They are not paying any of your costs. They don't know you. They don't know what you can do. They only see what you have on paper. They are sponsoring a job offer for you. Now, Generally, when it's sponsored, you're going to go on a work visa or what we call a temporary visa. Then you're going to get into the country. And after X amount of time, again for Australia, you may transition onto a pathway to residency. Yes, nothing is a given. If you can go employer sponsored, speak to us. We generally like to run two pathways parallel with one another. And the best first one that comes, if you're happy with it and we find it legal, that's what you should be going with.
And if I can jump in here on that aspect, back in the day, when these countries were really pressed for foreign laborers, they used to make their offers really attractive in that they would offer to pay for flights, accommodation, etc., etc. And it's a huge investment from the company side to carry those costs. But over the years, unfortunately, what's happened is people have taken up those jobs and then stayed for a month and then jumped to another company. So companies over the years have become very wary of such a huge expense. And now we see, with so much competition from Philippines and Malaysia and those countries with candidates trying to come in, these employers have started wanting to see a commitment from the candidates as well. So they will then say, are you document ready? Are you working with a licensed immigration advisor? Do you have that certificate, of commitment? Because they will then offer the job token, but they want to see you put in your value by paying for your flights and your accommodation, which is again where we come in under greener pastures, because they have a full relocation support package whereby you can actually pre-arrange your accommodation, pre-arrange where your kids will go to school, pre-arrange several things before you arrive there. But employers want to see that commitment from you, and in return, they will offer you a job token, which then ties up your visa and gives you the right to work. Another thing is employers, if you were looking for a job in this country and someone made you an offer, they would expect you to start within a month. Call it a calendar month, but a month nonetheless. Overseas employment is no different. They want to know that if they offer you a job, that you'll be able to be there within a month. So while the process may seem long up front, there's a reason for it. If they offer you a job, you must have all your documents in order. There's no turning around to the employer saying, pity me because I'm coming from another country, I need more time. They really don't care. And I don't mean to be heartless by saying that, but they're employing you for a skill set that they need. They're not there to wait for you to get your things in order. And this is where we come back to what George Naby was speaking about, the right way and the wrong way to do things. A lot of families, go through all the effort of getting a job only to then immediately come running to an immigration advisor. I need help with my visa. But they don't understand, to be document ready, there are certain things that are required. And I'm sure George and Amy can elaborate a little bit more on that to tell you what those requirements are before you can actually start a job overseas.
Absolutely. Well, I'm just going to add in there because this does tie into our topic here of the 3 real pathways, and skilled migration is a points-based system. Canada has it, New Zealand has it, Australia has it, the UK has it. They all have different ways of doing it, but there is a way that you can get a visa before you get the job. But it's common and there's long waiting times. So what we do is we combine it with the job search. So we'll put you in an expression of interest in the skilled migration pathway for Australia. And while you're sitting there waiting, we're also applying for jobs and exposing you. And that is where we stand out with our process. The documentation, there isn't a set answer to it because it depends on you, your occupation, your experience, your qualifications. I mean, you have to be registered as a doctor to practice as a doctor. You have to be registered with the medical council pharmacy board exams, as a lawyer, board exams, got to get registered. With the engineering council, if you're looking at, engineering roles, there's Washington Accord, Sydney Accord, Dublin Accord. Nursing, there's certain exams you have to write, optometry, it differs. I know one thing that really upsets me is quantity surveyors, for example. If you are a quantity surveyor and you want to go to Australia, if you don't have a bachelor's of science with an honors, you can't get in. You will not get a skills assessment. You have to look at if you've got a diploma and a postgrad. If you have the postgrad, it has to be after a bachelor's. It can't be after a national diploma. And the problem with South Africa is that our national diploma is the same NQF level as a bachelor's. But because the word is not right, it's not the right qualification. So there's so many complexities to it. I'm sure, George, you've got a bit more insight there.
I've just got one to add. Husbands and wives, beware. You need to prove your partnership, and a marriage certificate ain't gonna cut it. Okay, so when I start processes with my clients, I say to them, your proof of relationship folder is the one that's going to take you the longest, so get stuck into it now. There's about 12 folders, and each subfolder has subfolders. A marriage certificate, well, you know what? You don't even need to be married. So don't even supply us with that. So just do your due diligence. Don't waste money and get it done right first time.
Absolutely. And George, I mean, somebody, Lilith mentioned, asked a question, how about complex health waivers?
Yeah, now, section A4 of the Immigration Manual.
So that's such a general question. We need to know more about it,
It's tough, eh? Yeah, it's tough. Like, say, for instance, New Zealand, they've got a preset list of what is considered as ASH, and ASH is being of an acceptable standard of health. If you have one of those conditions, I'm sorry if you do, but it's tough, guys. So speak to somebody. Don't try and just go hit a medical waiver. Speak to somebody, let them say, okay, look, I think you got a fair chance, or maybe not.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we tell you that before you get into the process.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Riyadh asked if I want to immigrate to Europe, like Netherlands, Germany, Estonia, which presenter should I sign up with? And I just want to clarify, we all work together here. So it's one brand, Greener Pastures. There is that email at the bottom there, inquiry@gpvisas.com. George is licensed for Australia and New Zealand. We also have an immigration agent for Canada. We also have an immigration agent for the UK. Europe has a different process. So we do a country assessment where we look at all the options based off your career. And a lot of the time, Sam and Feroz know I go back and forth with them, look at the CV, what do you think are going to be our challenges? And we report back and we give you a really nice breakdown of your pathways. So quick one, just to explain the 3 pathways. Skilled migration is a points-based assessment. There are age limits, there are qualification limits, registration limits. So it's important that you get the right assessment. Employer-sponsored visas, this is where the employer is sponsoring a visa, not paying for the process, not relocating you, not buying you flight tickets. They are taking responsibility for you so you can work in that country. Strategic career moves, this is something, falls under depending on the visa and the country. But at the end of the day, it's more about, if you want to work in the renewable energy, or if you are working in mining, you want to go to a country where they have mining and it's a big industry. You're not going to go to a country where there's no mining at all. There's strategic career moves that we put together for you guys. Okay, sorry, we are running a little bit late, so I'm going to try and get through these last few slides a bit quickly. But common mistakes that people come across, waiting for an opportunity, not checking what visa or if they qualify, and believing social media stories.
That's the big problem.
I actually just got an email from a client who said that, this working in the USA as a farmer, I do not see that as a greener pasture for anybody, because the immigration policies in the US are highly dependent on who's running the country. And you don't want to go somewhere, build a whole life for yourself, and then there's no permanent pathway. So believing social media stories, there's so much out there. Please check the dates, but please check the person's information. If somebody got a visa, maybe they're in a different role or they have a different qualification. There's so much to it. So that's important. And waiting for an opportunity. For us, how many times if we look at the ratio of how many applications versus how many opportunities just rock up at your doorstep, what do you need to have in place for an opportunity to arise?
Well, you need to have everything in order. So from your CV to your cover letter to your social profiles, it needs to be set up in a specific way, which we do on our side. But waiting for an opportunity to fall in your lap, it doesn't really happen. I would say it's definitely a miracle. But in terms of the applications that we have to send out to find you, that miracle is in the thousands. So
Definitely.
thousands of applications have to go out before an opportunity arises, but it never just comes to you and falls in your lap. It's a lot of work that goes into it. It's a lot of research. There's a lot of applications that go down as well. It never just comes through on its own.
And that's dependent on your occupation. That is a big one. Because at the end of the day, teachers are in high demand, medical staff are in high demand, construction is in high demand, trades more than anything else, but it does depend on how you present yourself. So to wrap up, and then we'll answer a few more questions a bit later, but the first step towards getting somewhere is to decide that you're not going to stay where you are. And that is an important factor, because you have to be in the right headspace. And we always, when we have these discussions with our clients, the first question is, why do you want to immigrate? And we're going to work on that element of it. So after you've decided, then you come to greener pastures, where we focus on our values. We hold true to our accountability. We focus on bringing the whole family. We don't like the idea of leaving your kids behind and bringing them later. It's better to go as one. We do understand the financial implications, but we will always encourage what's best for the whole family. Transparency. If you don't qualify, we'll tell you don't qualify. If we don't see a pathway for you, we will tell you that. And we make sure that we can at least guide you some way so that you have a better opportunity. Empathy is a big one in immigration. You are going through all the nerves, all the anxieties, and you know what? We understand. We've been doing this. I immigrated to Australia and then to the Netherlands, and then I moved from my home city. I've got Ubuntu tattooed to me because I have to stay South African somehow. But Sam's also lived abroad. Georgia, actually, I'm not sure. But we've all traveled and experienced those countries that we work with. And we have empathy. We understand what you're going through. And the results speak for itself. We've got a candidate, which I'm super proud of. She was working with another company for over 2 years to not even get a single interview. With us in 9 months, George submitted her visa application today. So next week, we are hoping to get the news, and she should be out by May. So very, very excited. So back to that, your journey. If you want to have a consultation, please email inquiry@gpvisas.com. You'll find it here. And we'll overcome the country options. We'll assess all your visa pathways. I don't give any immigration advice. I'm working with George, and it's coming from him. But this webinar there's no legal advice here. This is a general webinar to give you guys an understanding, career positioning, timeline planning, and also cost planning. We break the process down to help with the finances and to give you realistic timelines. Okay, so we have a 3-stage process. Visa and work ready. George and I work together on this. George does all the visa side. I help with the work side, getting your registrations or your paperwork in order, and also premeditating any issues that may come up. You know, we go through this information firsthand. Okay. Job search, we've got our incredible Faraz and Sam. Faraz, maybe you can give just one little bit of information about how you make our candidates stand out.
Well, we've got a tailored job search plan that we engage with them, so they are part of the process. It's not just sitting aside and waiting for something to fall in. We keep them involved in the process. It helps speeds up the process, and of course, they understand a lot more about the country that they are going into and how things work over there. So later on, they wouldn't need to engage specific services again. It would be as simple as, hey, I already understand the process. It's now easy for me to navigate and move through the process itself.
Absolutely. 100%. And you know, at the end of the day, the skills that you're learning and you're going through with this process, it does set you up for future opportunities. You know, Sam and Faraz are super generous with their time and their resources, which we always talk about. But at the end of the day, you know, we're setting you up for greener pastures. That is the point. That when you go to another country, if you want to explore a different industry or another job opportunity, you've got the network. You understand what's required. You know how to get through a job interview. You won't be nervous. You know how to send an email. You know how to do a cover letter. You know, there's different elements that you've got the templates, the skills, but we do take up most of the legwork for you. Okay. And then from a visa and relocations point, that is our 3rd stage. So George is incredibly meticulous with his visa applications. George, what is your average turnaround time now?
Just hit my record for a work visa, 3 days.
3 days. That's incredible.
Happened a week and a half ago. 3 days, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But to be on the safe side, let's just say 7 working days, but that one was 3. I couldn't quite believe it myself.
And you know so that would be for New Zealand. And I have noticed that if you look online, most people or companies or pages, whatever, say 6 weeks. So it's, you know, we're the right team to get you over. And while you're sitting biting all your fingernails off for the visa to come out, we're going through your relocations. Where you're going to live, where your kid's going to go to school. Let's make some friends. Let's join some sport clubs. We basically take you through that whole process. Okay. So just to summarize that, we overcome, we prepare you, we expose you, and we help you settle. We have the right network to get you overseas. And that is our webinar for you guys. Please reach out, inquiry@gpvisas.com. Pop an email through. Let's set up a meeting. Let's maybe give 2 minutes to see if there's any other questions that we can maybe overcome. I know people have asked about age limits and fees. This is dependent on your profile and it depends on your country. So please reach out. We can't just give you a breakdown. There's no one size fits all. And we do have, I mean, BNI is Business Networking International. We have a list of business owners throughout the globe that help benefit us in getting you overseas. Awesome. Any final words from you, George, Sam, or Faraz?
I'm looking forward to meeting all of you. I'm looking forward to lodging everybody's visas. I'm looking forward to lodging all 20 odd people who's here. I'm looking forward to getting your documents together with you. So let's do it. Time, remember, is now.
Absolutely.
My
Awesome.
advice, don't let it wait for too long because there are tons of people that are signing up for services like ours. And before all the opportunities are filled, as much as there is demand, there's tons of people looking at these opportunities. So you don't know how long that market is going to be that ripe. So take advantage now, give your kids an early start, and give them an opportunity to settle in well into a new environment. That would be my best advice.
For me, I'm looking forward to meeting everyone. This is a passion of mine, as it has been for 2 decades now. And we're looking forward to make your greener pastures come true.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody, for joining. There will be a recording. I will share it with everyone. But have a beautiful evening, and we'll chat to you soon.
Cheers,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye bye.